to the story. It's story time with Skye. You can fall in love and laugh until you cry. It's story time with Skye. It's story time with Skye.
Welcome to Storytime with Skye. I'm your host, New York Times bestselling author Skye Warren. Every week, I tell a brand new story based on the heroes, heroines, and meet-cutes that you want to hear about. I bring on some of my favorite romance authors as guests to help me craft a hilarious, steamy, and ultimately romantic story with a guaranteed happily ever after. So pour a glass of something fun. Welcome to the story. Hello, everyone. I'm Skye Warren, the host of Storytime with Skye, and I'm here today with my special author guest, Adriana Anders. Hi.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
Tell our listeners where you are calling in from.
I am living in Brittany on the coast of France.
On the coast of France. That sounds beautiful.
It's gorgeous. The weather today is beautiful, and I can see like a little sparkle of ocean kind of in the distance. I mean, it could just be a cloud, but I think it's the ocean.
It's beautiful either way. I love that for you. So Adriana Anders is the award-winning author of Romantic Suspense, Contemporary, and Erotic Romance. Her books have received critical acclaim from the New York Times, Oprah, Entertainment Weekly, Booklist, Bustle, USA Today, Happily Ever After, Book Riot, Romantic Times, Publishers Weekly, and Kirkus. Today, she resides with her husband and 2 children on the coast of France, writing the love stories of her heart. That is a lot of praise that you have gotten. I did not know all of those praises. Now I'm a little bit flustered. I'm like, I know her. I
should get them framed, put them in the office.
It should be behind you on like that slanted wall. They should just like be pointing down.
I will. I'll do it.
So no, I do feel like that though. Whenever especially if I knew an author sort of like before she got famous, I'm like, oh, I know her. It doesn't really even matter if we like actively talk anymore. Just like I know her. Just so you know, Good Morning America and ABC News and whatever. Okay, so we are going to create a story today.
I'm so excited.
It's going to be fun. So I have 3 story elements that we're going to do. And I'm going to tell you each one, and you can kind of give me like immediate reaction or if you've written one before or anything like that. First one, a Scottish lord.
I have never written one. How exciting.
Yeah, and I'm not going to lie to you. I am going to be relying on you pretty heavily for any information about Scotland because I don't know much about it. I don't quite have like the sort of like Outlander fandom experience. Do you? Did you watch the show or read the books or anything like that?
Okay. So I read the books decades ago when they first came out. I did enjoy them. And then I did not watch the show. I think I watched like the first 3 episodes, and then I'm very bad at watching shows. I'm not like a good series person, but I get bored. But I do, I know some things. I have some Scottish friends, but they're like modern Scots.
Oh, well, you're closer to Scotland. Yes, they're modern Scots. Yeah. They're probably not pleased, I guess, with whatever. I don't know how they feel about the representations they're given, but we'll not that pleased. We'll give it a shot. I guess it would be up to us whether this person does maybe live in a sort of more closer to the sort of representation that we might be talking about, or whether they're just like a modern guy. I do think I do think they should have a title, and that's literally it. So
I like both. I like time travel too, but then that's pretty complex for probably the amount of time we have.
Or just historical, which I actually don't think we've ever done a story time with Skye with historical. I need to get some historical authors on, and then I would definitely do it. But we could do it. We can do whatever we want because we are the gods. We are the goddesses.
I love it.
So
I love it.
Yes. So the heroine is a vet, like a veterinary for animals.
Oh, I'm seeing like horses. Like I'm seeing big farm, like this, or sheep, sheep in the Highlands. Totally.
Yes. you haven't written a vet, have you? I don't think so. No.
No vets, no Scottish lords. This is all very exciting, fresh
Okay.
ground.
Okay. And then the way that they meet, I do know that you've done this because I picked it for you, is through a BDSM club. I know.
I love it. I love it so much. Oh, wow. Okay. I do. So I think it needs to be a like IRL, they're one thing, and BDSM club, they're another thing. Like, I
Oh,
love that they would meet there. I almost want them to meet there for like vet reasons, but that's creepy. Like not sexually, but like the club dog, didn't mean to go there. Like as soon as it came out of my mouth. Oh, Adriana, what is wrong? Why do I do this?
okay. I like the idea though, but is it like, so they have like the two identities of themselves? Is it a secret though? Do they know that each other is the other person?
I think it's always better if they don't. I think keeping things secret keeps
Yeah,
them more
either if they
excited.
don't or don't write it first, or one person knows and the other person doesn't know, which might make a little bit more sense, especially if one of them is like masked or something. I guess the question is like, yeah, how do you keep it a secret? But okay, what if it starts with the Scottish Lord? What if he was not in Scotland for a while? He was the son of obviously a titled person, but they did not get along. And so through a mutual like banishment or agreement to leave, he's been off living in England or France or even the US, whatever, probably England. And then his father passes away. Maybe he's even called back to the deathbed and they have an angry exchange. But regardless, the father has died. And now he is the Lord and he's sort of like taking over this estate, which includes maybe this generational type of expertise in horses and racing horses or like thoroughbreds or racing stock, all of
Um,
these words that I've
I
heard.
love that.
I don't know anything about horses really.
Me neither.
They are very pretty. That's what I know about them. I love dogs, so I just might assume they're large dogs, with hooves. And anyway, so they're known for their racing stock, but I feel like I want them to be at odds with the vet for some reason. So I wonder if they actually have a history of being just too rough on them, too harsh on them,
So
mistreatment.
So I like the idea of it being everything you said is great, the estate. But what if it's an uncle who died and our hero inherits the title and the crumbling castle
Mhm.
and he inherits this like not a dud but a racing whatever it's even called, a horse racing team that's known for maybe not treating their horses that well. And so he's kept himself separate from the old family business for his entire adult life. And maybe he's forced to go back. Maybe his mother has begged him
Oh,
or I guess
yeah. I like the idea too. If we're gonna do the uncle, I don't know if there was this might just ruin the reason for doing the uncle, but I almost wonder if almost like two people died, like if he did not think he was going to be inherit, you know what I mean? And then it just happens and he has to inherit. So he has to at least, we can have the mother be there, but he sort of has to go just to sort of like their staff and people who rely on the estate. He has
yeah.
to at least show up, even if maybe, he hates it or he wants to dismantle it. I, I also, what I think could be true though, like, because here's the thing, like, you could love horses, you could have like you could be known for this great like stable or racing horses type thing. And then maybe your children, as you pass it down, are not as good as you, but they have a little bit of the legacy. And so they try to just keep it up with using rougher tactics. And so that's what's been happening over the generations, like that there maybe was and originally they were actually good with the horses. And then the as people tried to cut corners and just didn't have that same level of
Right.
skill, they've been
Yeah, the fortune is gone, and all they have left is the crumbling estate and the title. And I like that. They can't even heat the rooms. And I like the idea of him having to get back everything back into shape again while going to like the local kink club. So the question is, does he go there? Is this something he does like in real life from where he was before?
I
I
think
so
I think he's been living like a jet set life. You know what I mean? He's been like in the middle of London, visiting kink clubs, living among skyscrapers and stuff like that. Just like the very opposite of how he was raised, right?
yeah, I wonder how I like her. Oh, I wonder if maybe she gets called into the kink club because there are literally like no doctors around
Ooh, yes.
and
Yes.
she helps out in a pinch. Haha, she'll always have to be the one to go in and like this is not the first time. But then how would she am I complicating things by making wanting to make it, you know, s- m- maybe she is just kinky and she just goes there to get her rocks off.
Well, I feel like I how she connects to him in regular life. Oh, here's how they cannot know who each other are. Because the problem is when you see someone and then you like have sex with someone,
Yeah.
like, are. What if they've been communicating via email? Like, what if he inherits, and so everyone immediately knows, like, he's the new owner. He doesn't immediately fly back like that same day. Maybe he's like, I just need to get rid of this stuff. Like, I don't want it. I love my life here. It's different in every single way. And so I'm just going to sort of like dispose of these horses. Now, like, he's not into animal cruelty, obviously, but I think ultimately he can't go in, he can't, his first instinct cannot be like, I'm going to go in and treat these horses amazing, because then there's no conflict with her. So he's got to say, I think what he's got to say is, listen, I have no interest in running a racehorse business. Frankly, my father and my uncle should not have been running a racehorse business. Like, they're not. Oh, what if instead of his father, what if it's maybe his father already passed or something? It could even be like an uncle and his cousin who was,
Hmm.
and so he thought again that he was never going to inherit, which he was glad about. But an accident happens, they pass it. Maybe it could even be kind of sad where like a horse rears up and something like that due to
I
the
think it has to be horse related.
has to be horse related, unfortunately. Oh, and they could have kept the horse, like, he could have, like, a horse would be put down after something like that, so he could have, even though he tells himself, "I don't care about the horses, I just wanna get rid of them," he does send the order that that horse should not be killed, but, like, no one can really handle the horse right now, so he's just sort of, like, left in a stall of, like, this wild horse that
I
no
love
one
that.
can tame except possibly later the heroine, you know?
She that becomes the heroine's horse.
Yes.
I feel like the heroine has to have gone from a horse riding background. Maybe it was like an Olympian when she was really young, like a kid, would do like the steeplechase or whatever, and ended up becoming a vet
Well,
after maybe an injury.
connected to that also, like, she could have come from a, like, a smaller landed family that had horses and loved horses, and they were sort of, like, broke, had to sell everything, and in a way, sort of like she blames the lords like them for doing that, you know what I mean? Because they have the money, they have the flash, they have the name, they have the connections, but her family had the love of horses.
I agree. I think if she knows horses to an extent that these people, it's been almost not bred out, but over the generations they've sort of lost their love, then her coming in, she's going to bring this whole fresh air to the stable. I love the horse side of things. Like I feel like she's going to be bossy
Mhm.
about horses, and then in the bedroom she'll be the opposite. And there's got to be a scene where there's like horse tack, like the livery
Oh,
stuff or whatever it's called, this the
right.
saddle.
I
There's leather.
I think she starts I actually okay, I had this idea where you're like, I was like, what if her father did own horses originally, like her family owned horses and was small and they got shut down, they had to sell out. But what if he went to work? What if he was like the head horse manager guy
of their stables, but then got fired when he would not condone the treatment or quit because he could not condone the treatment. And so she has actually been told specifically how bad these horses are treated, and also told like how wrong that is. So she's grown up with that like knowledge. And maybe when she got old enough to be a vet, she's actually championed like animal care rights. And so she's like sent letters to them. She sent letters to the thing. So they know her as being a nuisance, but then they die. And so what is she going to do? She's going to bother the next guy.
I love it. I love it. That's perfect. And she's known by everybody who works there. Everyone on the estate knows she's not allowed.
Yes.
They have to go far and wide to find another vet because there's no other local vet. So it's just been a huge pain in the ass for the family. And of course, he's coming in from outside, and he doesn't understand. He wants the closest vet, and he's trying to get the animals cared for and rehoused or whatever his
I think
objective.
the thing that would be fastest is if he knew of, or, probably even had an offer from a place like him, right? Like someone else who just treats the horses like commodities, doesn't care that much, but is like, I know how to make money with them. So like, yeah, I'll buy you the whole lot from you. You could be done with all of this. And he's like, that sounds amazing. That sounds like exactly what I want. And she's like, no, not only are you treating them wrong, but you cannot sell them to these people who will also treat them wrong. And so they've been, it's giving like shop around the corner. What is it called?
Oh, you've got
You've got
mail.
You've got mail.
Yes. So like the fact is he's wanting the thing that she absolutely does not want, and the thing that she's gonna fight tooth and nail.
I think she could almost, when her first email to him could be like, I'm sure you are horrified to know about this terrible treatment, which he probably is a little horrified by. But then she's going to come in with such a heavy-handed manner of like, you've got to do this and this and this. And he's like, who is this girl even telling me what to do? Like, I have no interest in this.
But intrigued nonetheless.
It does also feel like a little hot. Like, even though it's just via email, he's also like, I would like to show her a few things, actually. And the other thing is he's going to go back to the home, and he's going to talk to whoever is running the stables now, who we know as the reader is not a great guy, because he's willing to run the stables this way. But I think from the hero's point of view, this guy is going to appear very normal. And I'm not saying the hero's going to trust him. He's not going to be gullible. He's not going to be like, oh, this is a fantastic guy. But he's going to be like, I don't see the problem. Like, I am not personally willing to step out on a limb for these horses and change the way all horsing is done. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And also the bad guy in the stable, or the untrustworthy guy, will be able to maybe make the hero doubt the heroine too, and make her sound untrustworthy. She's a squeaky wheel. She's a pain in the ass. She's been shutting down stables all over the country. This guy just wants the horses to be sold. He wants to get his bonus payment or whatever it is and, move on.
He could want the sale to go through because maybe he knows that there's no future here anyway. And so he wants to go work for this other company and with these horses with a big bonus and everything, like you said. But there could even be like a scandal in her past that he could bring, because she's local, had worked there. So like he would know, if she ever had like even just like a love related scandal, because guys love to bring that up about women. So it would just be like, this girl, desperate, got left at the altar, whatever it is, Oh,
I think that works. I mean, it's immediately when you said scandal, I thought of like she burned, or she like opened animal cages, and like wreaked havoc. But I think a love scandal is always a little more titillating and a little more fun.
You want to see my doggie? She just came up to me.
Cutie. Wait, do you have one behind you and one on your lap?
We'll pretend she's a horse for the purposes of the storytelling. I think it could be both, actually. I think she was, radical. And I think it's hard for people to, when I hear someone was doing that, I'm like, cool, good for them. But I mean, I do think it feels a little extreme to some people, he's just like, it discredits her. But I think bringing up a little love problem would be interesting, because then he can use that later on. And so he shows up and the guy is just like, yeah, you should sell. And he's thinking, yeah, I should sell because even if I don't love the way these horses are going to be treated, maybe he knows right away. I don't love it. But it's just, again, I mean, some people don't like the fact that we even do horse racing. It's just like, how much are you going to fight this whole system, right? The horses were bred to be raced and bred to be trained this way and stuff like that. So he's there and he's like, you know what, but I'm frustrated. And now there's a BDSM club near me. And that's great because I would love to let off some steam with a nice little sub, little Scottish sub.
I love him. So he goes into a recently opened club in the nearest city, which is probably like a drive for him. And maybe he's meeting old friends there, or maybe he just goes. I guess he would go in on his own. So do we think she's kinky and she's just a sub who goes to the club? Or I tend to think generally it feels like a newbie is more exciting to write because it's an awakening, it's a new experience. Also, through their eyes, it's more fun. I think, but it doesn't have to be. She can be an experienced sub.
It could be that she was in love or she thought she was. She was engaged to this guy. He could have introduced her to this whole, dynamic. And now that he jilted her, she's like, maybe a friend convinces her, like, this is the way to do that. And she's like, no, I only did it really, with him, who was love. It was
Did it.
And, I don't know if it really could ever be like that in a club. And her friend's like, just come. You obviously don't have to actually do anything, right? You just can come to the club. And she's thinking to herself, I'm definitely not going to do it.
And it can be a masked night, like event at the club, which is always a good excuse for people to be at least partially hidden. So, I mean, she might have looked him up when she started corresponding with him, but she wouldn't know what he looks like exactly. So,
I think, and honestly, she might not have, or just, sort of like he might even just be like a byline on some Wikipedia page about their family or racing horses or something like that. Not like he's necessarily in society or whatever. I don't know if we care what he did, what he's doing as a job. Maybe just something really like finance, like something really fully opposite the situation of horses and working. It's just like very esoteric ideas of numbers. So,
and I like it that he has money of his own that he has made apart from the family, so that in the end, he will be able to save the stable. He will be able to finance all of that.
And really, that would piss his uncle off even more, right?
Yeah.
Like he'll be like, I won't support you. And he'll be like, fine. He'll go off, make his fortune, and the uncle's just like furious.
I think that works. And I like the idea of the two of them having sort of instant attraction in the club, getting pretty dirty, I think, at their first meeting. Like
So
going both.
She's feeling out of place. She's feeling nervous. Maybe she like gets a drink and, maybe there's even a conversation about it where if you have either one drink or a couple of drinks, like you can't play. And so her friend is like, get a virgin drink. And she's like, I'm not going to play. It doesn't matter. And her friend's like, just get it anyway. The night is young. You don't know where it's going to go. And so she gets this like virgin lemon drop or whatever, and then meets him, and immediate attraction, immediate intensity. I also think I really like it, especially in a dom situation, if like feeling that intimidation, because to me, it feels central to what is hot about it. So
Absolutely. And I wouldn't mind her seeing him in a scene with somebody to start off with and being super titillated, super kind of has never felt this excited about kink before, even though she participated in the lifestyle with her ex.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
nothing sexual, just like, just some flogging or something.
just some like maybe flogging and it might just be my mood or just me in general, but I feel like almost a little humiliation. She could be fully clothed, this other person, and I want him to be very urbane. You know what I mean? Because everyone there really still lives like in the country. Even if they're in a city, it's still like an area that's rural. He's like fully from London, the core of London. So he's He's just very urbane and like very cool and calm compared to some of the more rugged guys there. He just feels a little aloof, and that is working for her.
I love aloof, and I love that he just knows like he's clearly an expert. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's got maybe she overhears some conversation between some other subs who are just all a Twitter about how this new guy is here. He's very exciting. And he spots her.
Yeah.
And she is just exactly what he likes physically.
It's like very specifically Disney Cinderella, right? Like there's all the girls, they all want hit the prince, and then he looks over and she's a little bit apart and behind, but he sees her, he heads straight for her. They're all like, "Where are you going?" And he's like, "No, I see what I want."
She's sparkling. She's sparkling from the corner. She's
Yeah.
just, and he might, I like the idea of him being a little blasé about it too. Like, not really, like he's there because this is what he does. But maybe I think he's not that excited about being in the country and being, relegated by his circumstances to this place. And also, I think he's maybe bored because he hasn't had any deep connection with anyone in so long. So he
Yeah,
gets the spark.
and it's not that he, especially because, we know we're always looking ahead. Like if we want him to settle down on the family lands with the horses in the end, it's not that he actually hates horses and country, because if he did, that would not be a happy ending. It's that it's just so deeply connected to his experience growing up and his not getting along with his family. And I wonder if he even lost his father early and maybe was even kind of like raised by his uncle and his cousin who were older than him. So he really was kind of like in the worst position. Also, it's not a stretch, I think, to assume that someone who would be rough and cruel and even abusive to animals would do it to him as a child. So
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
might have,
So his memories are terrible. And I mean, you said Cinderella. Of course, now he's in that position of having been raised by his uncle, treated badly. He took off at the first opportunity and left the family. And so I love him seeing this woman having this like deep, truly Cinderella connection with her. Like they connect really hard. I mean, he's so good with his hands, good with his voice. Like he talks and she just melts. And they both would probably look for each other again. Like, he's the prince, he'd be trying to find her again, except
so I
they
think
meet each other in real life, right?
yeah, so I think she as a vet has, she didn't just become a vet for like the science of it or even just because she loved animals. I think like her family, like her father and her family before her has this sort of like special connection with animals. And I think oftentimes when someone can do that with animals, they can do it with people. So maybe he looks, he's the picture perfect Dom, but she can sense that he's not fully engaged, that it's not what he really wants.
She
And
feels
so
his pain.
she feels his pain. She can see a little bit beneath the mask
I
in the
love it.
other people cannot. And so they
I have to say, she's the Dom whisperer.
she's the Dom whisperer.
I love it so much.
And all the Doms there would be interested in her just because like new girl, she's beautiful, whatever. He's gonna be like, no, you guys are all out. They're gonna chat. I think at first they're gonna chat specifically about it, where I think she'll point it out. She'll be like, great scene. Everyone said great scene at the end or whatever. And he's like, thanks. And she's like, she'll say something to show him that she saw beneath the mask. And he'll be like, what? This is both, it's always nice to be seen, but it's also scary.
Yeah, and she'll see that it's partly almost an act. He's been doing it for so long. It's almost like he's blasé, and she sees that. I love that. And she's
She
suddenly, that puts her in control.
Yeah, she could challenge him. She could be like, who, like if he's like, oh, let's go do a scene. And he's still thinking, I just like her body. She's hot. Like, that's, he's telling himself that's the only reason he'd do it. So he would kind of do it the way he did it before, which is clothes on or off, but in public. And she'll kind of challenge him, like, who am I going to be doing the scene with? Am I going to be doing it with, that persona that you were, or like the real you? And he's like more turned on, and he's like, we're going to do it in private now. We're going to do it in private now. So they go get a private room. They have a scene. They, maybe start off with, there's going to be some negotiation. I like the negotiation because it's hot also, right? Because I mean, it would just normally happen, but also it's hot for him to be able to ask what she likes and use her like physical reactions as much as he uses her words, right?
Yeah.
And also this questioning is going to immediately reveal the fact that she's actually not that experienced. She's only done this with one guy, not at a club. So she'll have to say, I'm not sure to some of this stuff.
And I think he'll like that, which I think he'll, and this is where it's going to start to break him open a little bit, even that early, I think, about the whole country thing, because a lot of the things he doesn't like about the country are things that she's going to exemplify. And at this point, like, her inexperience is going to be something that he doesn't necessarily gravitate towards usually, but the fact that he's suddenly her guide in some ways, and yet she also is, has character. I think he's just not even gonna understand how far he's gone by the end of this scene between the two of them. He's gonna be like, 3/4 into her and have no idea.
Yeah, he's going to have gravitated towards women who are more like him because he knows they don't want necessarily a relationship like the way that he also doesn't want one, but he cannot stop himself with her, right? He still kind of knows she's what I should not go for. But he can't stop himself. It's too intriguing. It's too hot. It's too attractive to have someone who kind of sees him back.
I love this. And are we still like, is this still their meet cute?
I think it's kind of their meet cute. So I think how far they go, like he just maybe does something like a flogging or a spanking and then maybe makes her come and then like that's it. I don't think they go further on the first meeting.
Yeah, I think he might do a little public flogging. And by the time they get into the private room, they get to that spanking and things move beyond. I love that. I
So
love it.
I think we should have I think we had to see him already interact with that horse guy and answer some emails from her and so now I think we have to go into her life and we see her go home and be like, oh my God, that night was amazing. Does that mean it would just be like that with everyone? Because I did actually like it with the guy I was engaged to, and now there's this guy, but it doesn't feel like it would be anyone. I wasn't interested in any other doms there. It just was him. But maybe he also implied, like, I'm not sticking around. I don't belong here. Like he could have said that. And she understands that about him, even with their limited relationship. And so she's kind of telling herself, like, be cool, be sophisticated about this. You knew what you were getting into at a club. And she checks her email, and sure enough, there is a rude, uncool new lord. And maybe they either didn't exchange names on purpose, they told each other not to. Maybe they gave each other nicknames.
Yeah, they can have club names. I mean, that's
Or they could have just done like, it could be something where he's just like, his name is Nick, and he's like, Nicholas, long name the third. And she's not going to assume that's the
right.
same person because it's a common name in Scotland or something like that. So anyway, she gets this high-handed email and is like, this guy, I'm going to take him down. Like he doesn't know what's hit him. Maybe she was even close to taking down the old people before they passed using some sort of mechanism of I don't know, the law, in some ways. And so she types back a furious, response. And we get to see that as the reader of her just sort of like trying to take him down a notch. And already we can envision like how mad he's going to be on receiving this email.
I would love an instantaneous response from him that's very curt and dismissive so that she's sitting there.
She's going to write paragraphs. And
yes.
He's with one line immediately, just shutting it down.
And I want her to reply right away so that we have this first scene. So they've gone through this like really sexy stuff. They're both at home afterwards, and they're typing to each other. They're like past the adrenaline. They're both exhausted, but also getting worked up again. So there's this whole like secondary session happening.
Yes, completely. And I also want it to be that obviously she's going to say a lot about animal rights and about the law, and she's going to be talking about his uncle and stuff like that. And she'll maybe throw in like the tiniest seed of something personal just to like illustrate her point. And that's what his response is going to be on. He's going to like ignore all of that. And
Oh, that's so terrible.
I know.
That's
It's going to infuriate her.
And I think our readers, because that kind of behavior, dismissive behavior, is just not.
It is
It's
awful.
not.
But it also is interesting because what the reader can kind of imply, or is actually true anyway, is that part of the reason why he's sidestepping that whole conversation is that he kind of agrees with her, right? He's not going to argue with her about like animal care rights, right? Because he's not passionate in the other direction. The only reason he's even in this position is because of his uncle and trying to get rid of this stuff. So it seems like he's ignoring her, but it's also because he doesn't disagree with any of that. It's just irrelevant to his plans.
I love character-wise him getting upset, like getting just gruffly irritated by it, because yes, she's right, but that's not the point. I can see him on a personal level. We're seeing the little bits of the conflict within him coming out, which I love. I love that.
What if the person that she was affianced to, I don't know if I even said it correctly, was a local politician who she worked on this with, who then realized he had even bigger ambitions and that she was maybe a little too provincial to support him. And so that's why he left her. And so what she can actually say is, this bill, by so and so is going to block this, something like that. Just refer to this guy. And
Right.
she can say, basically, he has the down low from his stable owner. He can say, that's the guy who left you at the altar.
Ooh, that is such a mic drop moment.
And
Yeah, things are getting real right there. I think that would be the end. That would be like a good night moment. And then the next day. So when they meet does she have to come to help an animal at some point to his?
yeah, I don't know if we want to have them meet one more time, like at the club, to get closer, or whether we feel like we even need to do that. The hard part about it is that, like, sexually, I mean, it would be fun to have that scene, but if the characters are not necessarily getting developed in a major way,
I don't know that we need it, although I like the idea of.
I'm not sure we need it.
Yeah, I think they would think about it a lot. Like they would obsess about it and they would plan on going back to the club. But
Okay.
I don't think we.
Okay. So what if there's a little emergency at the farm? They're going to have some like baseline medical knowledge just from caring for them, and they're like, this is more than we can do. Maybe even the regular vet shows up, the one they've been using, and it's like some drunk who's like doesn't care. He's like, just put this animal down. It's not going to work. And he can be like, listen, obviously this is your business and not mine. I don't know shit about this, but it just seems like that's a little rash, don't you think? Like he can act very casual about it. Like he doesn't care that much, but he obviously is bothered by this idea. And they're going to put him down immediately. Like, okay, city boy, you do not know what you're talking about. We've been doing this forever. We're telling you what it's going to be. But the other thing is the manager can say something really callous. Like it's just a few $1,000s. You know what I mean? Like that's all we lose to put this animal down. And this guy can be like,
Done.
I'm not changing my whole mind about this whole situation. All I'm saying is let's get a second opinion. That's the only ruling I'm making right now. But even that will feel like a betrayal to them. They're going to fight him. They're not going to like it. And he's going to have to put his foot down and be like, listen, I'm actually the lord of this manor. I did not want to be, but I am. So we're going to get a second opinion. And they're like, well, the only other vet is this lady. And he's like, then call her, whatever.
And I think that's also the moment when he internally we see that he's a really good guy. He doesn't want to do this. We understand too that he is prepared to fire the manager. He just wants to get everything, off his hands. But his reaction to the manager, I think, can be almost violent when he says that. And I wouldn't mind seeing like some backstory, flashes to backstory where he remembers things that his uncle did that were just violent and terrible. And so there's, a conflict coming up for him.
You know what? Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's not just that he wants to escape the country because it was so bad. It's also like who he may think to himself, who I am when I'm here is my uncle. I am a violent.
Ooh, yeah.
And so if he does have a violent reaction, even if the guy deserves it, he's going to feel a little bit like, I don't even know if he needs to honestly get violent. I think this guy will back down as soon as he exerts like a little bit of vocal authority. But even if he feels the intense desire to punch this guy in the face, he'll be like, whoa, that is not what I'm about. That's why I left this place. It brings out the more feral tendencies in me. That's what I don't like about the country. It's not just that I will get beaten, it's that I will become this person who beats others. And in the city, I don't have that problem. In the city, I just have my very ritualized sex violence that is, completely different than this.
It's totally under control. He controls it. He's the master. And suddenly, like, emotional past led violence is coming out. I love that. And I love that we're seeing the two sides of him and that he's been hiding, the little boy for so long. And so now, and being faced by the potential violence against or unkindness towards a suffering animal is just really, he's reacting badly. So even if he doesn't, I don't think he would hit the guy, but I think he would definitely have urges.
And
I love the
he would have
character.
been willing to. That's the thing, though.
Yeah. Like, what's his name? Like, Sir, Ian something or other.
Ian, is Ian short for something, or is that just the whole name?
It's just the name. I think it's a like a version of John originally, but maybe not. Ian. So in French, there's Jan, Yann. But I like Ian. I think it's quite a
Ian,
sexy.
Ian, I'm just literally Googling Scottish last name. We're gonna give him a last name. Ian Murray McDonald.
Perfect.
The third. I don't know.
McLeod.
Actually, I don't think he can be the third, just because isn't it like the oldest son type thing, and he wasn't gonna inherit.
Right. No, he's the first, I guess. Lord something or other.
Yeah. I like the name
I have,
Italian, actually, but I think I'm using that in my state. I think I gave the brother a name. It might be that. Anyway. I think I was looking at Irish names though. So like there's some overlap.
yeah.
Anyway, his name is Ian. That works.
So
So it's like we're calling her. Okay. She shows up.
I love that she shows up and she takes over. She is all business. She knows exactly what to do. And of course, the manager is an asshole, is pouting or whatever he's doing, trying to prove that he's right. And then Ian and our vet heroine have to come together to save this animal's life.
Yeah.
And it's one of those scenes where there's enmity between them. They're kind of bitching at each other, maybe snapping, but at the same time, they both end up at the end of the scene admiring the other one, even if they don't admit it. They would definitely, there would be more than just the club because they're going to recognize each other right away, right?
Like, I feel like they will, even with masks. It will be. It's going to have to be like, you asshole, from the emails, and then they're going to be like, wait, you from the club, and then
That's a big moment.
and then they're going to hear like a horse whinny in pain, and they're going to both have to be like, put it aside. They're going to rush in. She's going to be like, he's going to look and be like, this looks really bad. Maybe they were right after all. And she's going to be like, I don't give up, basically. And which I think is just part of her. It's a core part of her personality, right? Because in a way, the thing she's trying to fight is so large that people do give up, right? Like that's why we give up, because it just feels impossible. But her personality is, I don't give up. So she rushes in. and
I mean, I'd love to see them working together for a long time. Of course, I'm picturing like, birth of an
yeah, it could be a
animal.
birth that's going wrong. Oh, that could be what they say. Like maybe the baby is not coming out. Obviously, this shows, I mean, I don't know anything about birthing
I don't
horses.
care.
What if like baby is not coming out well? Really, they might lose both of them. And they say kill the mother because she's worthless. And this
Yeah.
little colt is going to be like a champion. And he's just like, it's just too callous to even look at it that way. I cannot. And I do think that for an enterprise that big, they've got a lot of helpers. And some of those helpers maybe do care about the horses, but they're obviously not willing to stand up to the head guys or they wouldn't even be there. So I think they do have some other people there who are like, go get us towels, go get us whatever. But he's like literally in the stall with her when she's like, I need some help. Cause it's also like really physical. They're like very heavy animals. So she's like, you have to do this. And he's like, just like doing it and just wondering, like, what the hell am I doing with my life that I'm literally like holding this bloody horse baby? But then they do it. And I mean, that's a powerful moment right there. If they succeed, they're going to succeed and they're both going to live. And I mean, it's powerful, even I think if you're just watching it and it's smooth, but the fact that it might have gone poorly and then you save them, like that's a huge bonding experience.
It's huge. And also I like that the whole team, the people working there will immediately start to admire him and look up to him.
Yes.
They'll all sort of set aside what they've always thought about her for gossip reasons.
Yeah.
And so it'll change the dynamic in a way that suddenly the manager just does not look like he's not the person. And maybe they didn't respect the manager anyway. Probably they wouldn't, a lot of these people
Like a
wouldn't
fair
have.
kind of respect, right? Like I will show you deference because I have to or I'll be gone, but that's not the same thing
Yeah.
as respect.
Oh, I love it. I love that it's like creating his little family too. Like this is creating the village, the found family that's gonna gather around the two of them.
They would have negative feelings towards her because they've been, all this stuff, but also they'd have negative feelings towards him because his family probably talked about how much they hated him and how lazy city boy he was. And so yeah, this is like, whoa, we did not expect this of him. So the little foal is born. And I think she's gonna say, I mean, because it was so rough of a birth, there might still be some sort of like uncertainties or injuries. She's like, I'm going to come back, every day to check on these two, both the mom and the baby. And he's going to agree because like, regardless of, his feelings or their concerns about all of this stuff, he's going to say he wants them to survive. So, and obviously he can't trust the foreman. So I think he's got to fire the foreman. I just don't think
There will be a conflict. I think there needs to be a moment where he literally rips the guy away from something that he is doing in a cruel way and throw him aside or throw him to the ground. And this is not how we treat animals. And the manager is going to be snide and have a response about his uncle, and then he's going to order him off. And suddenly he's on his own, like he's the one in charge. And so left alone, things will suddenly start to change. And I also think there can be a moment. So throughout this, she's visiting regularly. And I think there will be whiskeys shared and
Mhm.
exhausted moments, out on the porch, which sounds very American and not very Scottish.
Well, I think it could even be the first night, right? Because she's gonna be like after the birth, she's gonna just be exhausted. She's gonna be a mess. And so, but she's also maybe even gonna be a little shaky, like it's an
Yeah,
adrenaline moment. And she's gonna be like, I'm just gonna drive home. And he's gonna be like, it's not safe for you to drive right now. Come back in the house. And they have a moment. Maybe
yeah.
even like clothes for her and like some old Scottish clothes of his mother's or something, like tucked away in a trunk. He's like, here, wear this. And
Tartan. And see, she comes out of the shower wrapped in his mom's. Yes, I love it. All scrubbed clean. They share a whiskey in front of the fire.
yeah. And then the next day, I think, she could come and this guy, maybe he hasn't, yeah, he didn't fire the guy like in that moment, but he's obviously not impressed. And the guy is still pissed and feeling like his territory has been invaded. And so he might go out and sort of take it out on a horse. You know what I mean? Like when he's
Perfect.
And that would be the moment that, like you said, where
Yeah.
he's going to tear him off the horse and be like, get out of here, get off this land. You're not welcome here.
Yeah.
Like, be
And at
left.
this point, he's like, he's getting more and more attached to this land, which is in his blood anyway. And he's mending things and building things and, developing relationships with the people and animals. She's coming every day. So they're developing relationship, which can actually get sexy at this point, especially after he fires the foreman or the manager, because she can have the false belief at this point that he's not going to sell. Like maybe she'll be under the illusion that he's keeping it and he's going to run it.
Right. He's proving that he's willing to change the care. Like she can actually say when she comes, she's like, not just he's going to be like, how is the mom and baby? She's going to be like, they're doing well. I still need to check on them. But, all of them need this other type of care. And he might even give her a hard time just to give her a hard time, but he's going to do it. She's going to come back the next day and it's going to be in place.
Yes. Yes.
And
And he could even invest in things, which is, the half of him that doesn't realize what he's doing is like spending money, right? Is like investing in the property, fixing it up, doing all this stuff, while the other half is still in London, still in the fancy club, still pretending.
kind of lying to himself, saying, the only reason I'm investing in this thing for the horse's care is just to keep them healthy until I can sell the place. Like that's all I'm doing. Like he's just completely lying to himself about that.
I think that's perfect. And the two of them will get so close. And I'm seeing so many moments outside, moments where he's riding again and he hasn't ridden in 20 years. And the two of them share like moments in meadows, hands are held. And there are these really intense, warm moments. And then the buyers are coming the next day to visit. And
Yeah, it could be like she's like this kind of saddle hurts them or something, and then when they get the new ones in, she's like, how does it ride? How did it feel? Because she assumes that anyone would ride a horse if they were given the chance, and he's like, I don't know, I haven't ridden a horse in 20 years or whatever, and she's like, what? And so they go off and do it. They have an impromptu race. You know what I mean? First, they're like just taking it out and seeing how it goes, and she's like, and he's like, dang, I did really love this when I was a kid. This was like my favorite part of being a kid. And then they decide to have a little race. And maybe they actually stop at some like hill, get off the horses, share a kiss, and he's like,
I think they could even have like a scene, like a kink scene there. And I can see it starting with her kind of jokingly commenting on his riding, him making a joke, joking back. And suddenly the Dom sub thing comes back and she gets a spanking. And there's a moment where, he uses something to tie up her hands. And then suddenly they're doing it in the field.
yeah, like he could do. And I think it's interesting too, because, even the accessories that he used were very city, right? And so he can tie her up with like this sort of like rough leather thing with her hands. And he can even like tear off a branch and say, I'm going to use this like as a switch or whatever. Or even if he doesn't do it right at that moment, he could sort of threaten her with it. And he starts to read like sort of how kinky the countryside is, like it's just.
This is so good. This is so, every one of my books like goes towards country and family, even if they're set in urban settings, it appeals to me as a writer so much. Like I love that. I love the rough leather.
I don't know if a horse would do this, but I kind of think they would. I feel like I've seen enough TikToks about horses to think they would do this, but dogs do this, which is that if you're like sort of doing a kink or whatever, and you're hurting someone consensually, the horse would try to stop, like the horse would try to like nuzzle his hand away to just be like, don't hurt her, and that's going to be like so cute.
Yeah, I love that.
He's going to be. His uncle would obviously just be pissed at the horse, like, how dare you? And he's going to be like, nobody, don't worry. And, she likes it or whatever, and he's going to just go tie the horse up to a tree so he doesn't, keep nudging them.
And it would change the nature of the scene too, I think, between them. He can't even act out rough stuff if the horse is getting upset. And so there would be, I don't know, that's a real tender moment. I love that. I love that with the horse coming and getting worried. And then, so they're super close. And actually, if this is sort of the crux of them falling in love, or if there's another scene later, they can go home and then it could actually be that the buyers are there at that point. I mean,
I think she needs, well, we have the good thing about the timeline is that we do have her coming back every day. So it could be any day, like it could be, but it would just definitely be like the next day. I do think before this, like when she was giving all the advice, you got to change the saddles, you got to change the whatever. She's got to say, hey, that horse in the corner, he can be trained. He doesn't need to be, he can be taught not to do that. And he can be like, she's like, let me do it. And he's going to be like, absolutely not. Right. Because it's not just about the fact that, like it's that he's worried for her specifically, not just that he's worried about all people.
too dangerous. Yeah.
Right. And so they've already established that. And I think that she wants to work with that animal and he is refusing. The thing is, it's like part of her argument will work against her, right? Because she'll be like, maybe they even bought that animal from someone else who was even worse or whatever. But, she can say, like, he actually has scars. Like, that's how bad he was treated. And the thing is, it's not like the hero is unmoved by that. He does care, but he's thinking, well, then all the more reason why you can't go near him because he's learned to be fearful of people and you're still a person.
I mean, this is such a metaphor for him too, right? Like
Oh,
he's,
yeah.
if we give him scars, right, from something that happened in his childhood, like there can be a big moment. And I wonder if he won't start like developing a relationship with this horse too.
Yes, it could be that. It could be almost instead of her, it could be him going out on a moment,
Yeah.
dark, not even trying to admit it to himself what he's doing, but sort of being unable to stop.
Oh, I have such a like a goose flesh moment of thinking of him realizing that she would take the time on this horse and like seeing that she would take the time on him and that, the
Also, he thinks he goes into that whole experience, when he moves there first, believing the horse is ruined, but he still doesn't want to kill it. But he believes the horse is not fit for human
yeah.
company. And so he does not immediately start working with the horse. Why? Because he still believes that. He only starts working with the horse quietly, secretly, when he almost starts to wonder deep within himself if he is redeemable.
I love it. I love this so much. I love him. He is such a, wounded hero. And I love that like all of the smooth stuff goes away until the bad guys get there, quote unquote, and they're there and she sees him putting on this mask again, putting on this smooth.
What if that sweet moment they had, it did get way more tender, it got way more close than he thought, and he is now terrified. He maybe even
Oh,
steps and he acts urbane again. He acts, "That was a great scene, thanks, babe." You know?
oh, I love that and hate it all at once.
I
I
know.
hate it as a reader and I love it as an author. It's so good. Yes, he can. That he's putting on the mask, he needs it. He needs to feel safe, and he feels totally unsafe because he hasn't left himself out in
So
the open
then
like
when the buyers arrive to sort of just like tour and discuss terms, no deal has been made, but they're very serious about it. He's serious about it. It's not even like they have to do any convincing. He's like, thank God. I wanted out. I was feeling too much. I got too close. And now this is my ticket to be able to leave. Everything can go back to the way it was.
yeah, and she can be there. She can show up at least for part of it, and she can be just totally astounded, gobsmacked, and he can say something sort of really dismissive to her
Yeah.
and make her feel like
I think they can also be dismissive to her, right? Because she's probably said shit to them too, right? Like if she's just sort of like in this overall activism space, they're like, oh, you know.
right. Not only is she an activist, but she's just a vet. She's just the help. She's yeah.
And we can even be, I feel like, in his POV for that, where part of him loves seeing her so protective of the animals and all sort of riled up and like she's in her true essence, right? So he's going to enjoy seeing that. And he's even going to be offended on her behalf when they start insulting her. And so his, obviously the better half instinct, the one that had the tender moment with her, he wants to just like punch them again, like he wants to defend her and against them and kick them off his land. But the part of him that wants that safety of the city is thinking to himself, this is kind of a kill two birds with one stone situation, because if I'm rude to her right now, she'll really hate me. She'll leave. I can sell to these people. And so he can sort of back them up. Like, yeah, you obviously like don't really know what it's like, and to run one of these.
And I love that this makes his grovel. So he does have to have that moment when he realizes he's wrong. And I think the moment would probably come after they've left. And I think that it's between him and the horse. And maybe one of the employees is there, like an older person who's been around for a while. But I think his horse.
Before that, though, here's what I think, though. After, I'll say it. We'll see if that's a good idea. I don't know. What if she's like, maybe that he actually, when she leaves, he's still kind of pissed at these guys, right? Like, even if he made her leave, and he feels way more turmoil because she's now left, and he's like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
should be about this. I wanted this, but now it doesn't feel good. And so he's going to say, what about this horse over here? Or they may just say, oh yeah, that one has to be put down.
Right.
And he's going to be like, no, you can still take him. Like, what if I just pay for his care? Just keep him alive. And they say, no, we're not going to do that. Like for any amount of money, it's just dangerous. Like, it doesn't make any sense for us. Like that's not part of the deal.
Right.
And he can be like, damn it, because, I mean, it confirms what she was saying about, like, he can even ask some probing questions and sort of confirm what she was saying.
Right.
And be like, now I don't want to sell. He can still he won't send them away and say no. He'll say, okay, you know what? Just write it up, send it to me. I'll look over the contract. Like, but they think the deal is done. They think the deal is going to happen.
Yeah, I think when he suggests they keep the horse, they would say no, and then they would just sort of laugh it off. Sure, sure, and he can see that he's being made. And what I love is that he can get her back. He can get her back by, instead of keeping it as a racing stable, he can turn it into a place for, retired race horses and horses who need, who would otherwise be put down. And he does that not just to get her back, but because it's what he decides he needs to do. But also it's like a huge, huge gesture.
I almost think, though, before that like they could, okay, so she believes the sale is going to happen. We as the reader are kind of getting the idea it might not happen, but he still hasn't even fully rejected it out loud, at least.
Right.
And even to himself, maybe. And so then it's storming, because of course, why wouldn't it be? And she's thinking to herself, I know, like, listen, none of the horses are going to have a great life if they get sold, but there's nothing I can do to save all of them. That one horse, though, I can save. So she sneaks onto the farm and gets that horse, who doesn't know her still and doesn't trust her. And he's very skittish. It's storming. Like, this is actually a bad, unsafe situation. But she's like, I've got to get him away. It's the only way to save his life. So she starts doing it. Maybe it does go poorly. He kind of rears up on her. She doesn't get super injured, but the guy comes out, sees it, and is horrified, and sort of like, just sort of like accosts her, and is like, with his horror. And it's just like, how could you do that? And she's like, how could you do that? And he's like, that horse could have killed you with like one kick. And she's like, going to die. And they're gonna, and in this moment, like in the rain, while they're arguing, like their deepest feelings are going to come out. And she's like, you don't care about this you don't care about the countryside, you don't care about the horses, you don't care about me. And he's going to say, he's going to come out and just say, like, it's who I am when I'm here. This is who I become when I'm here. I've become someone who hurts horses and people and and they're going
I care too much. I care too much. And it hurts. It hurt. I mean, he can turn into that like almost historical romance hero in that moment, where the whole, like, his pain explodes with the lightning flashing. And I love this scene.
And I want him to really live in the desolation. Like, I think, like, it would be romantic if right now he sort of turned the tides and said, I love you. But I think they can kiss. They could even have sex if we wanted to, just sort of like an angry, anguished sex. But
Class. Yeah.
But then ultimately he sends her away. He's like, go, you don't belong here. It's not safe for you here. And he puts the horse back in his stall. And then it's the moment where he can go drink himself silly for like 3 days, really work through all of those feelings about, who he is when he's here, and acknowledging that maybe he doesn't have to be that person, that he can be someone else, even if he's living in this house and he has the title that he never wanted and he has the horses, like that he can choose a different path. And so that's when he does the grand gesture.
And I think him recognizing too, in those 3 desolate days, having maybe seeing sparks of himself as a kid and the bits of him that actually did belong there more than his uncle, more than his cousin, and coming to terms with that. I love it. I love him. He's like a Heathcliff, tragic, tragic hero.
I love that too, because I mean, he has to like obviously physically live in the house, but he also can do that, like walk through the halls. And maybe he like refused to go live in the head lord's room. He hasn't moved in there. He's like, why would I? I'm gonna leave anyway. And he goes in and feels sort of the air of like malice, but also I feel like desperation, and it's just like, listen, this guy, this is actually not who I am. This is, even standing in this room, this is not who I am.
I
And
think that's great.
they're going to have some like crest, from like way back when they were like chosen by the king as the head of the horses and stuff like that. I love our like incredibly precise terminology here.
Over the massive fireplace.
Over the massive fireplace. And he's going to be like, that is actually my heritage, to care about this land and the horses and the people. And it was actually, and I thought all along that I was betraying that by moving to the city, but really it was my uncle that betrayed it.
Yeah. Betrayed the entire heritage, the family, the name. I love it. It's beautiful. And so his grand gesture is perfect for him. It's perfect for her. It saves the animals. And then it creates this whole new entity that harkens back to what his family originally was.
And I also think, well, I mean, it kind of depends on how we feel about horse racing as a whole, but we could also, I mean, I have heard the argument, and that's, fine, is that, that some of the horses love to race and that they really are bred for it and they love it. So it's almost like he doesn't have to stop the horse racing, but he can say, that's not all we do, because we also can start this foundation for the horses to be rehabilitated, and we can name it after this horse, whatever the horse's name is, which is like a little bit blasphemous.
And he could ask her to head it up and ask her,
He would be the perfect person at it. Like he could even do that where he could show up and that could be his first offer. And she could be like, oh God, that is so meaningful and so good. And it's so perfect for me. Really, like I would have accepted this job, but can I even see him every day? And then she can be on the fence about it. And it maybe is not even until like that night, he tells her, or maybe her friend knows something and convinces her to go to the BDSM club, that he sort of makes his like declaration of like romance.
I love it. I love that it's full circle. And I love that it's about blending all of the sides of them together. I love that. That's gorgeous. I love it.
Yeah. And I think that just sort of like, he'll do the grand gesture, like the grand declaration of his love for her and how she has changed him. And she'll be so moved. But then you can also be a little bit playful. Like, that's not what like a master would do. Like if he got down on one knee or something like that, and he could be like, oh yes, well, I also have this other side of me. So let's do that now,
Right. And show her a little of the bossiness that convinced her initially that this was what she needed in her life.
Yes. And also, like, I think it also goes to the heart of like, what is a dom, right? It's someone who, sure, they're in control, they're in command, but like they're supposed to be watching for and paying attention to and caring about the needs of the submissive, which is like what a horse caretaker does, like, sure, you're in charge, but that doesn't just mean you do whatever you want. It doesn't mean you cause harm.
The sub whispering.
The sub and the dom whispering.
Yeah, he's and maybe maybe it could be a moment too where he recognizes that this is something he's always had, just this, like, it could harken back to his relationship as when he was younger with animals. And I don't
Yeah,
know. I mean,
like,
maybe that's what,
right. Almost like this was the avenue that he could safely
yeah,
experience this, especially
yeah.
in this. He told himself he was not into horses and stuff like that. And he realizes that, yeah, this was part of him all along.
I think that works. And I love that it's full circle. And I love that all of the parts of their lives overlap like that and come together that way.
Okay, so what would the epilogue be?
Oh, I think it has to be at on the horse farm, and I think it has to involve like an I think it would have to be some kind of an event. I mean, so it could be a racing thing, but I think it's more of a
Be like a
part.
grand opening of the rehabilitation center?
Yeah, like I think it would be opening that or hosting their opening the doors or maybe wouldn't be like getting a new animal in.
I mean, they could be getting married on the farm.
Oh, oh, you could totally have like a horse walking her riding down on a horse or
Like
like
the horse that like killed his uncle. Like you put flowers around his neck. He goes down.
not the same animal at all. And then there's a speech about how this is what, receiving care does to a person, does to an animal, does to a man, transforms them, makes
Definitely
them
outdoor
human again.
wedding. Yeah, like greenery everywhere. A lot of the community there, I think, you know?
All the people who had shunned them, all the people who had shunned her, I think everybody, it would be that sense of family. And from the beginning, I've imagined somebody who worked there since he was a kid, some older sage person who
Mm,
kind of is there, maybe a cook or something,
yeah.
who's been there from the start and who is present throughout all of it. I love the kids, kids are playing where kids haven't played in 40 years or
Yeah,
whatever,
I
30.
also want her to like either like maybe during the reception and of course it's like they've got the tent, the candlelight, the cake, everything, everyone is having a great time,
Mhm.
flowers in their hair, things like that. I want her to, oh, remember how she had the virgin lemon drop or whatever it was, and he could be like, oh, have a glass of champagne or whatever, and she's like, I can't. And the thing is, they birthed a baby together. So she's going to make a reference to that, like that mom's name, like because of that, because I'm in the way of like that mom's name. And he's going to be like, what the hell? Oh my God. You know,
He might not get it right away. It'll take him, there'll be a
but he'll be
little,
like classically dumb, right? Because he's never thought about having a family. He's like, it's sort of like just, it takes him a minute. You know what I mean? In
yeah.
part because like his body is like accommodating the idea.
And then tears, like man tears. And then the whole, everybody, old lady overhears. And then it's like the festival, babies at, Averly or whatever it's called again.
Yes.
Yay! Oh, I love it. I think it's festive. It actually feels in some ways like a historical, like an old school.
And there was a moment early on when I thought, like, well, we could just make it historical to make some of this easier. And then I was like, no, I actually really love writing historical tropes in contemporary. And I love it that we did that essentially. Because this
Thing
easily would have been
works.
historical, but I like that it was not. And that you had this like modern woman doing it because it would have been, it's always tricky to do those things. Like, even when you want to have like a scientist in those days, she still has to be such an outcast and such a
Yeah.
trailblazer and such, and such an extreme move back then. And so, obviously it's still very cool that she's a vet in modern days, but it really can also just be a profession. So I did enjoy that. And I'm just going to say, so the next thing that we typically do is come up with a title. I already have one in my brain, but I don't know. I don't always have one in my brain when I ask this. I almost never do, but I had one.
I don't have anything in my brain. My brain is empty.
Mine is very simple, but I feel like if I had written this book and I were publishing it, I think I would call it like Her Scottish Billionaire.
So I like it, but there's nothing about horses.
I know there's nothing about horses. Breaking the Scottish Billionaire. I'm just kidding.
I I actually really like that. I like that because
Scottish billionaire, I know.
there's a little kink in there. I mean, I like that. I like that. Or taming. Taming.
So it's funny. I did a retelling of Jane Eyre, and I was thinking of calling it. Actually, as I was writing it, my idea was just Mr. Rochester of the title. And then I told my PR person, Nina, and she was like, that's not like romancy enough. And it's like, she wasn't a Jane Eyre fan, so that was part of it. And I did understand it's very Jane Eyre, right? Like it only sort of whatever. And she was like, how about taming Mr. Rochester? But ultimately, when I was talking about it with some friends, we kind of decided it implied that like he wouldn't be like the alpha or whatever. And so I went in a completely different direction.
That.
And it's called private property, which is we just abandoned that entire thing. So,
I still like it. I like both. I like breaking, taming.
I think the Scottish is important though.
Yeah. And I like Scottish billionaire or Scottish lord.
A Scottish lord, because if you just did, lord sounds historical as part of the problem, but if you just did horses, it will feel like it's in Texas or something, which is not, but it's like not the right, vibe.
I like Scottish billionaire because we don't really have any of those, do we? Like, have you read a Scottish billionaire?
I was like, I think it would actually be a good title because I think you get the idea that it's contemporary, you get the Scottish, and I think you sort of get this country city dichotomy already.
Perfect.
So it's really simple, but I sort of think it works. I don't usually come up with a title and then like push it through in this way. I usually am a little bit more brainstormy, but I'm like, listen, it is what it is. But anyway,
I'm drawing a blank on titles, so it's perfect.
Yeah.
The best about it is Dom Whisperer, which doesn't work.
Oh, the Dom Whisperer. It doesn't work because she'd have to like know a lot of Doms, but I definitely think it's adorable. And maybe her friend should call her that. You know what I mean? Like almost like at the end of the night, she could be like, her friend could be like, but what about that guy? And she could be like, oh no, that guy has this problem. And her friend could be like,
I love it. She knows.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We did it. We did the whole thing all the way through. And so the final question I have for you is, if a listener loved The Scottish Billionaire, what book of yours should they read?
Oh, definitely Kink Camp, Kink Camp Hunted, which takes place in exactly what it sounds like, a camp where they are kinky. It's a summer camp for adults. And it's a primal romance, which involves primal play with a dom and a sub. And it's very kinky and outdoorsy and exciting.
That is perfect. Okay, so Kink Camp Hunted is the first book, and I will put a link in the story notes. So if you're listening right now, you can just sort of click over to wherever you hit play, and you'll find the link to that book so that you can read it. Kink Camp Hunted by Adriana Anders. And thank you, Adriana, so much for coming and doing this with me. I had a great time.
Thank you, Skye. This was so much fun.
Yay.
Thank you so much for listening to Storytime with Skye. I hope you enjoyed the story we crafted this week. Please subscribe so you don't miss a new episode, and leave a review so that other listeners can find our show. We always put links for any books we discuss, as well as books by the guest author, in the show notes, so you can definitely find something new to read. And if you want to help choose our romance adventure, be sure to join our Facebook group, Storytime with Skye. That's where we gather suggestions and poll our readers, just like you, to find out what our next story will be. Thank you for being part of the story.
Welcome to the story.